to say thanks for allowing me to be here. I really appreciate it. We're going to talk about some erosion control and some stormwater stuff on golf courses. I've here's a little bit of the products that we sell in general. And environmental construction solutions, as Eric said, is kind of the construction arm of WS Conley. We broke off from Landscape Supply probably 12 years or so ago. But anything you can imagine going by and seeing on a construction job site, we're providing on a day-to-day basis and delivering on our trucks. And so, here are some of the again, all our locations. So, like Eric said, we've got these products in our landscape supply, our 10 barge, and our Walker locations throughout the Mid-Atlantic and the Ohio River Valley. And a little bit about me, he mentioned, but the IECA is the International Erosion Control Association, and I'm a member there and a board member. We do a lot of kind of educational stuff throughout the Mid-Atlantic and further actually on working with engineers and specification. And that's a lot of what I do on a day-to-day basis. I work with our reps. I work with engineers on large projects like solar farms and landfills, or if they're building data centers or a mall or any number of things. And so a lot of that, what I do is, we do live webinars on the construction side, like Eric does on the landscape side and the golf side. And so, our website is Environmental Construction Solutions, ECSproductsVA.com, I should say. And so if you see a product on here that you like and really want to delve more into it, you can go on our website and watch on-demand videos of that, or get in touch with me or your rep from Landscape Supply, and we can certainly help you more. I want to start just a minute in this process and talking about seeding. I do events like this for golf courses, recently for like public works. And I used that presentation as a template for golf course and put some pictures and things I had from golf courses. And, I took a couple slides out, obviously, because, you guys can certainly talk circles around me when it comes to planting grasses and fertility and things of that nature. But just understand, for those of you who aren't aware, we also own a company called Chesapeake Valley Seed, and they are really well versed not only in turf grass seeds, but also in things like pollinator mixes, native seed mixes, things of that nature, and they can custom mix you one for your site. And the reason I mention this is because a lot of there's really kind of a move, I know, in parks and recs and in golf courses to take open areas and kind of turn them into meadow type mixes like this, because you have less mowing, less manpower needs, less fuel over the course of the year. These areas you typically mow once a year, once every 2 years. So we can help you create a mix specific for your area if this is something that you want to do. And there's all sorts of things about the establishment and maintenance for this. And I would just, go over the planning methods with you, because I know a lot of you on the golf course side seed and sod a lot. But when you get into, planting native seeds, things like hydro seeding and drill seeding, there's a hydro seeder there on the middle picture and a drill seeder on the right. They're really a great tool for planting these native in meadow mixes. And the other side of that story is that, you can use our kind of network of our customers if you like, if you want to, if you need somebody that you need to subcontract to do these types of things like hydro seeding and you don't know where to begin. In most of the areas that we cover, we can name a few very good companies that are in your area that could do something like this. And the only other thing I'd say about seeding is that if you are planning on seeding, a native seed mix or a meadow mix, when you use a non-selective herbicide and clear that out, you don't want to level it and plant on bare dirt. Use that biomass as a way to, you can seed right into that. That's how a lot of native seed and meadow mixes are done. It creates a great planting bed for those kinds of natives. Whereas typically, if you're going to start from scratch and, plant fescue or lay Bermuda sod, you're going to literally obviously clear it down to the dirt. And that's something you don't need to do if you're planting like a meadow mix in a certain area. So, certainly if you've got questions about that, let me know. And I'm going to move on now and start to talk more about some erosion control products and things that we use on a day-to-day basis in our industry. I mean, I like to show this picture and with Linus here and talk about all erosion control blankets are not the same. Of trade names out there. Like some people might say Curlex blanket or straw blanket, or they might be call it a waddle and talking about a blanket. But these are basically products that you use as an aid in vegetation to cover up bare dirt. There is a little bit of erosion control prowess to them as well. If you put them on a hillside, they'll help down the water and keep from having real erosion. And what's interesting is that, they're not all the same. They have different lifespans, different efficacies, any number of things. And you just really need to know what it is you're actually looking for before you go out and buy one of these. And, I would say to recommend if you're buying blankets on a regular basis, and, to look into an Excelsior blanket or a Curlex blanket. And here's a close-up picture of it. Curlex blankets are not like straw blankets that you unroll and seed underneath, and you pin these. But they're instead of straw, they're made with Curlex wood fibers. So these wood fibers are made from aspen trees. So they won't float. They're kind of naturally curled and barbed, so they grab each other. They grab the ground a little bit better for erosion control. They swell up and hold about 9 or 10 times their weight in water. So picture of them, actually installed, you can see the benefits of them. They look a little neater than straw. And really for a golf course application, the reason why these are so unique, I think, is because they're made of wood fibers. There's absolutely no way that you can have weed seeds in this. Straw blankets are sometimes through the manufacturing process. They get the wheat straw or different kinds of straw to make those straw blankets, and there may be weed seeds in them that you may bring to your course from a erosion control standard. These blankets this is a temporary erosion control measure that's, I think, a lot better than straw, but for not a lot more money. And then not only that, you're taking out the opportunity to bring weed seeds into your course. So a real a benefit there. And then just as to understand all these things, this is a turf reinforcement mat. This is a permanent erosion control blanket. These are typically made out of recycled bottles or plastic, and you put them down. They really hold the soil more for the long term, and the grass grows through them. The straw and the Curlex wood fibers are going to degrade over time. I mean, these products that are turf reinforcement mats have a lifespan, and they're going to be there. And so you can start to see, here's some on a solar farm. The pictures in the left, grass is starting to grow up through there. So if you've got a steeper slope and you're trying to get it vegetated, but you're worried about the soil migrating over time, this is something that you pin in, and it will actually hold the slope. But once vegetation grows up through it, you won't see this at all, but it'll still be there. It will be a permanent erosion control blanket. So it's great for seeding troubled areas. It's great for seeding areas with water flow too. Higher end TRMs have a shear stress rating, and that's basically an engineering term to say how much water flow can go over there and not destroy the blanket or undermine the blanket. So these are something that you could also put in ditch lines, places, but that you can still vegetate it. So if you're normally got something in a small ditch line and it's wet and you're trying to, maybe you're putting riprap in it or something like that. This is an opportunity that you can really hold the soil, but also get some grass established. And so, if you go back to the original Curlex blanket I showed, that's a temporary erosion control blanket. It's biodegradable. The straw or the Curlex fibers are biodegradable. But if you've ever used one of those, it's got the netting that's on like the back of like sod netting, and that's what holds all the wood fibers or the straw blanket together. And so in an erosion control situation on a construction site, that's not a big deal. All right. I mean, the grass kind of goes through that, but in a fine turf establishment place like a golf course or parks and rec, I mean, a lot of times that temporary blanket can be sort of a nuisance because, if you're mowing the grass real short, you've kind of got to go back and pull all that netting up. And so what these companies have done is they've created 100% biodegradable products, in the last 5 to 10 years. And they've really grown both in the use on construction job sites, but they've really grown on landscaping type projects as well. And so what that is, you could get a Curlex blanket now, the one that I showed you, but the weave, the plastic on it that holds it all together, instead of being made of like a filament, which like a fishing line, or like a sod wrap, it's made of of cotton, so that mesh that's holding it all together will actually biodegrade too, and that's 100% biodegradable. So if you've got an area, maybe like on the backside of a tee box or something, where you're trying to get something vegetated and you need an erosion control blanket, a biodegradable one would do well. And then they also make these staples that are biodegradable as well. So this picture on the right is a wood based mixed with some biodegradable type resin byproducts, and that is a stiff enough product that you can pin that into the soil and hold those erosion control blankets there. But over time, that's actually going to biodegrade too. It just won't be there. It won't be left in the soil like a typical sod staple is what some people use to put down netting. So there's a lot of nets out there. There's a lot of blankets out there. Understand, make sure you're picking the one that you might need. I would say definitely look at Curlex as an option on the golf course side of things. So I want to talk about is a track out control mat or a reusable construction entrance, and this is one that we use quite often. This product has been out about 3 or 4 in the marketplace, and it is a construction mat or a track out control mat. So if you've what it does is they have these like these little pyramids on them, as you can see, and it gets basically the weight of the vehicle pushes down and indents the tires, and the mud and debris comes out of the tires and lands and is captured in the open space on these FODS mats. So these things are about 12 by 7, and you put them in the direction of travel. They've got a 10-year plus lifespan. You can pick them up, you can move them around. You pin them down with 18-inch pins, just to hold them in place. And it really doesn't take as long to do. So you can imagine some of these pictures, like the inset there on the top right. I mean, there's some big equipment going over this, but it's also, pickup trucks go over this. UTVs and ATVs go over these on construction sites. I've seen a Toyota Prius go over one. And so in thinking of this, this is, I think, is a possibility for a golf course. If you're doing construction, and let's say you're going over there to check on the construction, but you don't want to track any mud out, this would be a great opportunity. But also on a day-to-day use, if you've got an area that is off the beaten path, let's say you keep your mulch piles or your sand piles or your, your raw materials over there, and it's just, you don't have a great road over there, you could buy one of two of these and pin them down. And as your golf carts, the buggies you guys use with the little dump beds in the back, they could quite literally drive over these and grab all the mud out of the tires, and you're not tracking all that debris around outside of your course. So like, these products that I'm showing here, there's opportunity for them if you're reworking your golf course and you're literally, say, maybe turning under dirt and changing and actually doing a construction project on your course. But a lot of these have a day-to-day use as well, and I think this is definitely one of them. And so this is like any other erosion control product, though. So if you're on a construction site, whether you have silt fence, I'm sure a lot of you know what that is, or a wattle or anything, and as sediment builds up behind it, it is the efficacy. And what an inspector will do on a job site, an erosion control inspector, he'll come out and, like the picture on the left there, that sediment is kind of up halfway up to the top of the pyramid. So that needs to be cleaned out probably. So to clean these out, you can pick them up, tip them over, kind of beat the dirt out of them. Fods makes a little shovel that goes down the middle of them, and you can get all the dirt out. Now these are pretty heavy. I mean, you need a tractor or something to pick them up and get them into place. And they probably weigh almost 400 pounds. But then what you do is you kind of put it kind of where you want it, and two guys can get on one end, and they can, if you've got two or three of them, you can then really shimmy them close together just by kind of picking them up and moving them, kind of working them towards each other, almost like you would putting two pieces of carpet together, and then pin them in. The other thing you can do with these is you can actually use a concrete screw, and you can put them on concrete or asphalt. So by the same token, if you've got that materials area that is where you've got sand and mulch and things of that nature, and it's actually on a off of a cart path or off a paved road, you can still use these as well. You can still put them down and have folks drive over them. So and here's an example of where it's actually these are actually secured to the asphalt there. And so in a construction entrance, you can see that's in a T setting. So if a large truck goes through there and turns left or right, the turning rate is going to catch the top of that T on the end. But if you're using it for something just day to day on the golf course, I don't know that you'd need a T design. Maybe put two or three of them to go over. Pretty interesting product there. The same company makes these access mats, and while this really wouldn't be an erosion control product, I put this up there because we have a lot of these in our warehouses typically, and I think they probably have a lot of uses on golf courses. Some of you may have seen these before. It's basically an access mat that you can use if you're driving equipment. Landscapers or pool builders use them a lot to put over fine turf grass so that they're not just rutting up with things like an ATV or a golf cart or a medium-sized tractor if you take that onto your course. These are unique in the sense that they have two sides. One is called a vehicle side and one is called a pedestrian side, and you can flip it over and you see the picture on the bottom right there, so that if you're having events at your course and you've got wires coming from a speaking portion or wires coming near stage and people have to walk by that, you can quite literally put these down over the wires. People can walk through them. If you've got some areas between holes and people are going through at an event and it's a little mucky, you could put these down and folks could walk over them. And the bottom left picture is great because it's a lot of people use plywood for this, but the cost of plywood, this is just this lasts, you could use it again and again. Eric, we have a question coming in.
Yeah, I was just gonna say we move a lot of these into the golf market because of tree, especially this time of year, guys trying to get big tree companies in or big
Yeah.
chippers, onto the golf course in areas where they don't want to rut things up. So this is a real popular mat in the golf segment just because of the winter work that they do during the winter months with trees and drainage and all that other stuff that they're getting into.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. And I mean, these are 4x8. You can put them in the back of a pickup truck. They don't weigh but about, I think they weigh about, well, yeah, I'm
80.
sorry, there it is right there, 87 pounds. They, so if, if you're buying 4x8 pieces of plywood for this, I mean, these are, I mean, these are probably, I would say around $300 a piece. And that's a high estimate. And, so, I mean, you're going to buy a 4x8 piece of plywood. I mean, buy one of these and use it over and over again, or buy a couple. So any other questions about what we've talked about so far? Jump in. If not, I'm going to kind of switch over to some other things here.
Yeah.
Um,
And while you're doing that, just to remind everybody, there were some light people that joined on. If you want to ask a question, you can use the raise hand function and or type your question into the chat at any point. And as soon as I see it, I'll try to get your question addressed before he moves too far past that
Perfect.
section. So, all right,
Perfect.
no questions yet, Joe, but you're doing a great
All
job.
right.
Thank you.
We'll keep going. So this is a product that is used a lot on in the erosion control world now instead of riprap. It's a product called Fleximat. It is these 5,000 psi concrete um, pyramid shaped blocks, kind of that are 6.5 by 6.5, and there's a inch and a half spacing in it. If you look at the picture in the middle there, and it's they lay the concrete into this geogrid, into a biaxial geogrid, and the picture on the right, it's rolled up there. That's how it comes delivered to your job site or to your course. And interestingly enough, for the golf course guys, I mean, the company that invented this was an old sod farm up in Ohio. And they invented it, and that's literally why it's on. You can put this down and seed underneath it, and the grass grows up through it. And so if you're using this like in a ditch line or somewhere where normally you would need riprap in there, or, rocks, this could actually be vegetated. And, you can actually lift the blade on a mower and ride over this and cut the grass as it grows up. Now, when I say mower, I'm you guys remember I'm in the construction world. I'm talking about like a tractor with something on the back of it, or a zero turn. I mean, I'm not talking about a fine turf mower here, but point being, it's a, you can get in there and clean that area up if you need to. And so this is quite literally how it's deployed. I'm hoping that you can see the video here. This is a large construction site. They're doing like a sediment pond, and you can move it down a hill. If you're putting it on a side slope, you can just unroll it. So it is very heavy. If you're a smaller course, you need to find the right kind of equipment, but you can certainly get these and get a tractor in there and move it around. So there's a couple options here for the possibility of around golf courses that I thought would be interesting in, that we've heard and seen from some of our courses used, and talking to the folks about what they've done for. So, but the picture here is obviously not a golf course, but just to show you, like if up on the top left of that picture, it's got to be trenched in so that the water doesn't get underneath it, and then the grass will grow up through it. And you can see there in the inset on the bottom right, it actually comes with a Curlex wood fiber, like I talked about earlier, blanket underneath it, and the TRM. So when you put this stuff down, it has what's called a shear stress of about 24 pounds per second. So a lot of water can go through this. If you're channeling water somewhere, and then the grass will grow up through it. So you could put it on roadside ditches, outfalls. You can put it on slopes. It's used a lot in the construction world, and stream bank armorings and things like that, or if you've got, if you know what a spillway is off the backside of a dam of a large pond, you can also use it in low water crossings. It's used a lot in landfills, and we see a lot of it in the energy sector as well. But what's also interesting is that, the stuff is pretty heavy, but we stock an 8x30 and a 10x25 foot roll. And the reason for that is that weighs 2,500 pounds. We can put it on a pallet and kind of anywhere right on your golf course with one of our Moffats on the back of the truck. And so, it's great for like outfall, if you can imagine. So as I see golf courses, there's a lot of these off sides of cart paths or things like the picture on the right there. So in other words, look at that inlet and that drain, and imagine wherever that is daylighting. If that's daylighting somewhere on the course, like if it's daylighting on the other side of that hill, and then into a creek, and then maybe there's another hole or fairway down under that, you could essentially put something like this instead of riprap down there, grow grass over it, and you would really never even know it was there. That's the real benefit of it, I think, in that regards. The other thing is that this is on a golf course community as well. You can use shoreline rehabilitation with this stuff.
Hey, Joe, what were the weight of the smaller size mats? The 8 by,
These,
yeah.
so this is about 2,500 pounds. This stuff weighs roughly 10 pounds per square foot.
Okay.
So if you were to get one of these 8x30s that are 2,500 pounds, and you have a smaller or medium sized turf tractor, they come with on them, around them, so you can pick it up with like the bucket or like the front of a tractor and maneuver it into place. And you would just what you would do is you would stick it up under the outfall there. See in the picture under the left, you stick it up under and pin it in. These use a heavier duty pin. It's an 18-inch rebar pin shaped in a U, and you stake it in the ground. But this stuff is not really going to move like another product, like a blanket or something, because of how much it weighs. And the shear stress that comes on through this, it's used in outfall areas like a lot. You just need to create a channel with, and put it in like a U shape and make sure that water doesn't get underneath it. But it's also used for a lot of shore rehabilitations, and this is actually there's a housing development there, but that's the same golf course. That's the same kind of body of water that's on a golf course in the community. And you can see there that was starting to erode away. So they went in and kind of graded it out a little bit, and then they put this Fleximat in there, and they just roll it down past what's called the scour point, and so you can see it actually going into the water. And remember, because it's 5,000 psi concrete, you don't have to worry about anything like freeze thaw or the cold weather. I mean, they put this stuff on roadsides, and debris and oil can come off the road. It's nothing that's too tough for it, really. And so you can see there, that's the same picture about 6 or 7 months later, and you can't even see that it's there. So this is something that can be used in if you've got areas in your ponds or holding ponds or golf course lakes that are starting to erode away for any number of reasons. This is a way that you could stabilize that. A couple of the other products I'm going to talk about, you can do that with as well, but this is a pretty heavy duty one here that you can do. The other thing that's interesting about it is that you can actually get it without the Curlex blanket underneath it, and you can lay it down, and you can just infill it with soil or gravel, right? And so to where you just put it right over the top of the pyramids, the concrete pyramids, and you could seed right into it, or you could even sod over it. In Texas, they use this actually even on construction sites, and put Bermuda sod underneath it and over top of it. And so if you've got an area in your you know, your down yard or your area, if you've got places where you keep your equipment, and you've got some, you know, some rough spots there, you could, you know, you could dig it up, lay this down, put some rock back over it, and it would really give you kind of a structure to a gravel parking lot. You know, I was trying to find a picture of this, but I couldn't. I apologize, but I've also heard that it's been used occasionally. You know, just people will buy a roll and they'll cut the grid at certain places, and they'll make little strips of this Fleximat stuff, and they'll where the cart path goes into the fairway. You know, if the cart path has any you know, hill to it, a lot of times that water sits down there, it erodes away your fine turf at the end. You could essentially dig that out a little bit, put some Fleximat in there, fill it in with dirt, and seed it or sod it. And then what you've got is you've got kind of a transition between the path and the fairway, if that makes sense. So, you know, as those carts come off there and that little bit of space before they start to scatter, you know, you've basically got grass, but you've got something underneath it. You've got a structure underneath that will help, you know, any of that rutting out and stuff like that. So a lot of possibilities. You could get an 8x30 roll of this and do that. The grid is very strong in the sense of you know, holding the concrete together, but you can cut it with you know, with a sharp knife, or we recommend if you have to cut it, because guys that do, you know, landscaping work or work around shorelines, they a lot of times they cut and install it around in trees that they can't cut down. So we, you know, a heavy duty pair of scissors, like, or what I call them snips, like you would use to maybe to a piece of sheet metal, that would, you know, really easily cut through the grid that holds this together, and you could shape these any number of things. So again, a pretty unique product there. Any questions about the Fleximat, I'll run on and move on to another one. But this is a similar product that you could use really to make kind of retaining walls, or whether they be, you know, off the side of green in a body of water, or just a retaining wall anyway, that anywhere. This is what we in the construction world is an MSE wall, a mechanically stabilized earth wall. And so, you know, these basically, you stack these things up. They look like sandbags, but they're not. You know, they're tan. They are a non-woven bag, so that you know, if you plant something over top of it, or if you take a live stake and jam it down in between it, the roots will, you know, the fibrous and the roots will go through the actual bag because it's non-woven, and, you know, it will grow and become essentially what we call a living system. And this is something that you could get these bags and, you know, buy 100 or 200 of them if you need to, and you know, your regular day-to-day employees could take these out and create this kind of retaining wall, or put it around a small pond that's starting to erode away on the course. And what you have is you fill them up with dirt, tie off the ends, and then these connection systems, you know, have these spikes. And if you look there, they're jamming the spikes down in the bag, and then you put one on top of the other. And you put basically 2 pins in every bag. I mean, you can see there's a picture of them. That's a little high tech. That's kind of acorn back. And then here's another picture. This is more of a construction site, as you can imagine. But you can see kind of how this works. And then this was both seeded by a hydro seeder, and it also put live stakes in there to grow out as well. So this is on an offshoot of the James River down near Lynchburg. But one of the other pictures I wanted to put on here is that, you know, in the construction world, these things are 10, 15 bags high. You know, but there also can be used. This is down at Kiowa Island off the course with some houses back there. They were getting some erosion. And, you know, you can see here where that's, you know, roughly 3 or 4 rows high. These bags are tan. A lot of the bags in these space you've probably seen being used around golf courses. They might have compost in them and they're black. the black absorbs the heat a lot, we feel like, and it can hamper or hurt or be too hot for the growth of whatever you're planting in there. The compost degrades and you get a lot of sloughing. This is something that you would get this bag and you would literally put a media in there similar to what, you'd get some topsoil that's similar to what's to the native area there, and use it. And the other neat thing about this product, if you see this picture, you can see that they've actually got dirt and grass kind of right over top of the top layer of this. So if this was on a golf course on a situation around a pond, you could essentially put 3 or 4 of these to form up and keep the pond from eroding. But then you could backfill it, and you could put dirt right over the top layer of this. You could even sod right up to it, so that if you walk down to the edge, you wouldn't even know it was there. The only way you'd see it would be as if you were on the other side of the pond. And then if you really wanted to, you could even live stake it there, so things would go out of there and would cover it up as well. So another interesting kind of erosion control. This is used a lot in stormwater as well, and in stream bank rehabilitations is a big thing with stormwater. And I don't know how much of you, depending on, as golf course folks, depending on whether you're in a rural area or in more of a metropolitan area. I know in Virginia we have things like nutrient management plans. That's coming more and more to the construction side, and I can only imagine it's tougher on the golf course side. And so a lot of products like this is used. You can put them on your creek sides or things, or these. And this acts as an erosion control measure, but it's actually gonna, when you fertilize and irrigate, that's less nutrients that's going in that pond immediately. Obviously, there may be some, when it gets down into the soil, and there might be some migration there, but that stuff's going to be used more immediately and stay out of your waterways. So we also use a lot of compost filter socks, which the picture on the left, I was actually playing golf this summer or fall and took that one. And then that's a picture I got from their website. So those are both golf courses. The picture on the left I took in Virginia. And what these are, if you've never seen them or never used them, are they are these mesh tubes or polypropylene socks, they call them, and they fill them up with compost. So you can use them for any number of things. You can put them to slow down water, to filter water, to baffle water. They'll slow down water enough that you can divert it. So the picture on the left here, you can't quite see, but what I noticed that day is they had done some repair work, and through there it looked like the grass was growing back in up kind of above that wiregrass looking native looking stuff. They had seeded some grasses and so to keep the soil in place and keep it from migrating and moving down onto that cart path. The same thing, yeah. Obviously, a lot of water coming off of that cart path on the right, and that's a big enough hill. While they're growing in that grass, they need something to slow the water down so it doesn't erode away. So this is something that could be used, temporarily, or it's something that can be used and just kind of left there. I mean, here's a runoff diversion at a course, and I'm imagining that there's more of a hillside up to the left of that picture, and you can see that's a cart path that's gravel or rock, and it looks like it started to erode away as a result of the water being off of that hillside. It looks like up in the middle of the picture there at the top of the cart path, they've kind of added some rock in there or something. So this is going to slow down. This is going to filter water, but it can also slow down water and buffer it and divert. So if you are doing construction work around a green, or you're doing stuff around a fairway, and you've got a hillside that you're repairing, or you've got bare dirt on, this would be a great as an interruption device between your construction area, and your fine turf area. And this is actually used as perimeter control in the construction world. So what I mean by perimeter control is that this is used as a diversion and a filter and a runoff. But in that instance, if you put it between the construction site and your fine turf site, it can actually act as a silt fence, if that makes sense. So in most states, it is an acceptable use as a silt fence. So your contractor could use it instead of silt fence. It's a lot more aesthetically pleasing as well on something like a golf course. And then the other side of the Filtrek story is, it can actually bind up pollutant inside of it because of the mulch that's in it. And so if you've got inlets like this where let's say you've got big parking lots or places coming off of the course where the water is leaving your site, and maybe you have to test it from time to time, or maybe the local municipality, or you need to keep you need just stormwater to go down there and to keep the trash out and the debris and the sediment. These are things that are great and used on not only construction sites, but any kind of industrial or large open place that has inlets. You may have seen these around where you live, in your communities, around inlets, in your neighborhood during a big storm. Stormwater management with large municipalities, big thing going on now, especially with the Chesapeake Bay watershed and a lot of the implementation programs there. But there are, dozens of products like this that can protect inlets. We have several of them. It's just a matter of finding the right one that works for you based on the size of your inlet, based on how obtrusive if it is. Like the picture on the left, you can see that's called a Black Hawk inlet protection. And the picture on the left is there's a grate under there. And that one has magnets on it. So it literally magnetizes to the metal grate, and you put it down there, and it's going to stop any trash from going down the grate. It's going to filter sediment that you can see, like the mud is on the picture on the right of it. It's going to keep the mud out of there. Those two red dots in the middle are overflow valves. So what that means is if you have a large storm coming, you can pull those red pieces out of the middle of that, and as the water rises quickly over the mat, it will release. And in other words, all of the majority of these inlets protections have a way to release the stormwater in a large stormwater event, so that the parking lot or whatever it is you're trying to secure, it doesn't flood because the water can't filter through there fast enough, if that makes sense. So again, if you've got inlets like this and you need to get something over it or get them filtered, there are a number of products out there, that are, you may not have to do this all the time. You may only have to do this if you're working in a construction standpoint on your course, but it may be something that you use and replace, regularly. And people often ask how long these will last. It's really hard to tell. That depends on the amount of water that's going through there. It depends on the velocity, how dirty the water is, it's getting cleaning, things like that. So lastly, I wanted to also talk about some kind of slash stormwater product. It's called polyacrylamide. It's a flocculant. And the EPA, this is an EPA approved flocculant. And this has a way to bind up sediment and bind up pollutants in your sediment. There's a product like this out there in the market, in the golf community, called Foslock, I think it's called. And so it's similar to that, but targets sediment in general and not phosphorus, if that makes sense. And so what I mean by that is how polyacrylamide works. It is a chemical. It's EPA approved, so you can use it. It's been tested at length in a lot of universities throughout America, most notably in our mid-Atlantic world. NC State does a lot of research with polyacrylamides. and you can see there's drinking water on the left, and you can see there, the pictures on the right are treated. And so what's happened there is, if you were to see that before they did it, he would pour the water in there, and what happens is the polyacrylamide, it's it's uh it's it's anionic, and so the polyacrylamide binds to the sediment in the water. And then what happens is it weighs down the sediment, so it drops it down to the bottom of the cup, or in instance, a pond or whatever. And so if you've got a dirty pond from whatever reason, like if your pond gets dirty from sediment after a rainfall, or if you've got a construction on your site and you've got some dirty water that can be pretty unesthetically pleasing on something like a golf course, you could use a product like this. What they've done here, the picture in the middle, they've taken a corrugated pipe, they've they've cut a hole in the top of it. One end of that pipe is stuck in the pond, and that's probably 100-200 foot of pipe maybe, and then the other end is run back in the pond, and then they pump the water through this corrugated pipe. And so quite literally, the polyacrylamide, as the water is rushing over it, it flakes off. It's kind of like if you were to hold soap under a faucet, the soap would eventually go away. Well, the polyacrylamide is coming off of there, and then it's binding the sediment. And when it goes back into the pond, the sediment falls to the bottom of the pond. So you have to have some water in there to agitate it. Okay. So, I mean, you can't just take the thing and throw it in the pond and it's going to work. That's why they run it through the corrugated pipe and get the polyacrylamide to work. Or in this instance, what they did, they actually tied it to the fountain. And so the water, the pump bringing the water up through the fountain was enough agitation to actually, the acrylamide break off and then grab the sediment and bind it down, and get it weighted down to the bottom of the pond. So the other way that you can buy it is in the picture in the inset right there, which is in a granular form of polyacrylamide. In this picture, with they're coming out of the thing is what we call a treatment train. So if you have water leaving your site, whether it be on a construction area, or whether it be day to day, like in your overflows of your ponds after heavy rain, if that water is coming out of a stormwater outlet and going into your local stream or something, and you have the community that's testing that water and they're saying there's too much sediment in it, what you can do here is you can lay, that's what's called a jute mat, or a courier mat that's made out of coconut fiber. You can see they've laid on the ground, and then those are straw wattles that are staked in. I've also seen it done with a Filtrex compost filter sock. And then you quite literally take a spoon or a little, something, to get the polyacrylamide out of that pail, and you sprinkle it all over the jute matting and all over the straw wattle. And as the water comes down there, it interacts with the polyacrylamide and it weighs out the sediment. And you can see there it actually working. You can see the sediment that is on the jute matting and also on the straw wattle there. And so if you were to be at the end of that jute matting, that water would be clean. And you can see it's working so well there that there's actually grass or moss starting to grow on one of them. But so oftentimes we have to deal with ponds in the construction site, whether they be, in the construction process, they're sediment ponds. Time in most states, those sediment ponds then cleaned out into the life of the life of the project, and then they become stormwater ponds. And that's no different on a golf course. It's just on golf courses they're designed to be, a part of the course, not just like a stormwater pond of a housing development, if that makes sense. So those are things that you might have to deal with on from time to time. And again, this is something that is relatively inexpensive that can fix a problem. I mean, a bucket of that polyacrylamide is probably $100 or less. And can really easily fix a problem if you have one. Polyacrylamide can also be used generally as dust control, if you think about it, because it's binding up sediment. So if you have a construction site or in your golf course, like if you're redoing a nine or redoing an area or cutting down trees, and you have an open area where you have a gravel road or a dirt road where the construction vehicles are coming in and out, and it's very dusty. When you take that water truck over it, you can literally put polyacrylamide in the water truck, and as it comes out of the truck, it will not only wet down the dirt there, but it will hold it in place longer, and you can possibly have to water less in a 2-week span, if that makes sense, because it's going to grab the sediment and keep it right there. So that's kind of an overview of what we've seen, or what I've seen in the past 5 or 6 years, talking to our guys and some of our reps and folks that are out on the golf course day to day, and some of the questions we've had. And so I just wanted to kind of end with that, and certainly we'll take some questions, and I hope that some of that was beneficial to you.
Yeah, that's exciting stuff. We get a lot of the agronomic trainings that we
Yeah.
do with chemicals and fertilizers, but this gets my juices flowing because it talks about the fun part of the job that we all have is the project. But the one thing that came to mind, Joe, and you can certainly speak to this much more than I do, but
Mhm.
I know, there in every project, the budget limitations end up becoming a big factor in terms of buying products like this, right? And
Yeah.
and so what people forget in a lot of cases, and I know it's relevant in the Chesapeake Bay area that we deal with in Virginia and Maryland a lot, but can you speak to the fines and the level of challenges that the financial burden of these fines, if you get caught in some of these counties like Montgomery County up in Maryland? I know all those counties around the Chesapeake Bay. I think one of the things that's challenging is that some of these products, like you presented today, sometimes get forgotten about or eliminated because of budgets, and really use less effective products that end up putting them in a bad position. Now, there's two sides of this. I think all of us want to be good environmental stewards, and so there's that part of it. But really, it's the cost perspective that ends up sometimes coming back and really bankrupting a project, excuse me, because
Right.
of the level of fines. Have you experienced that at all? I'm sure you
We have, absolutely. So like every state is different, but in Virginia, where I live and where a lot of, our construction products are, you're part of the Department of Environmental Quality's regulations. And, if you're a uh, large municipality, you've got a guy out there that works for that municipality who is a stormwater person or an ENS inspector, and they inspect all this stuff. And when you build a housing development, these ENS inspectors, they come out there and they look at the plans that the civil engineer has done, and then they inspect all of the measures that are put in place for stormwater and erosion control. And now, so that's kind of like the building inspector, but for the dirt, if that makes sense. And so what we see a lot of times are in rural areas, they don't have that person, and they do a third party, they hire a third party, company to do that. And even in larger areas, they're so busy with kind of like a housing boom or building a warehouse or a shopping mall, that stuff like golf course, they don't necessarily think possibility to go to have water go down into the watershed. They're thinking, okay, yeah, well, I mean, he's going to move some around like at a farm, right? And so, a couple things you need to think about is how your golf course is managed in your state, whether when you move dirt, whether it's more like a construction site or more like a farm. And unfortunately, what we see with a lot of states is it's just folks don't realize that it needs to be inspected. And then the problem you have, it's too late because somebody is at another part of the stream down the road and the water is murky, or, and they go, well, why? And then they, figure it out that there's a farm or, a golf course that's doing stuff. And you're exactly right. But those fines can be twofold. One, they can be very expensive. Some of them are as much as $1,000, $2,000 a day until you remedy it. But the other thing that's going to happen, that if you get one of those fines, is that your work is going to stop immediately. And so if you are doing this in the sense of a big construction project on your golf course, and you're working with a contractor, your contractor probably knows a lot of this. But if you're doing some of this work yourself and moving dirt around on the course, you're so you're going to have to stop until you pay the fine, until you present something to the municipality of how you're going to fix it and how you're going to keep from happening again. So that could be a process of losing money with the contractor, having your course open later than you wanted to, things of that nature. So yeah, Eric, that could be a big deal.
Any questions from the audience? Again, if you want to use the chat function, that's probably the easiest to type it in, or raise your hand. I'm certainly welcome to unmute you so you can talk and ask your question yourself. All right. Well, let me wrap things up. If somebody has a question, certainly, Joe, if you want to go back to your contact information.
Sure thing. There you go. There's my email and phone number.
Yeah, and if you're doing business with Walker Supply, Landscape Supply, or Tin Barge, and you need some support, or you have a project coming up, please reach out to not only your rep for those companies, but reach out to Joe. Joe's been a tremendous asset to our company and a friend of helping us get to customers like you guys in the audience that for some of us, we don't have that much experience doing it. So sometimes we pick the wrong products. Maybe we don't even know what we need. And so that's where a guy like Joe can really help you at no cost to you, and before you kind of get too far ahead of yourself. So again, Joe, thank you so much for everything that you do and what you did today. I really think this may have been one of our best webinars, to be honest with you.
Thanks, Eric. Yeah, I'm glad to do it.
Yeah, I was just texting a few people there, and this was awesome. It's really got some juices flowing for me. But a couple follow-up items for you guys that are on the call. GCSAA ran into a computer problem a couple weeks ago that shut down their system for those that are looking for CEUs. We've had 4 webinars. Each one's worth 0.1. And the GCSAA lost an employee, and Diana Kearns to get involved, and then the system shut down. So my point being is that it's going to be about 2 more weeks, she said, before she's going to have all these credits. So I want to reassure everybody on the call, and I've said this every call now or webinar, but we're going to send out a link with the video recordings, which will all be available on our websites. And then on top of that, a link to the recording, and then a PDF of the presentation will also be included. And then we'll have the CEU points code. So you'll get 0.4 CEUs for watching all 4 of those webinars that we put together. So this is the last one for 2023. We're putting together a schedule for 2024. Which includes a full pesticide and fertilizer recertification class that will happen in February over 2 days, which we did last year and the year before that. And so, again, these are at no cost to you as a customer. We try to do the best as a service to you and provide good information. But as I start planning for 2024, if you have some topics that you think would be great for this, please come up, please reach out to me. Again, my name's Eric Snellsire. I'm the Director of Sales for Landscape Supply, and I can be reached on Twitter or email. I'm on the website, our website, so I'm sure most of the people on the call actually know. But I see one question. Keenan says, does Joe come out to sites to evaluate and recommend products? Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah,
he
most
does that
definitely.
on occasion when his schedule allows. He's always on the road working with civil engineers and contractors trying to get things in the right state. So yeah, Keenan, he can certainly come out, and you're close to Joe. So
Mhm.
down in Lynchburg.
Yeah.
So well, guys, thank you again. Happy holidays to everybody. I wish everybody safe travels. If you're traveling during the holidays, I want to thank you for your business, for the opportunity to serve you guys. And on behalf of Landscape Supply, 10 Barge, and Walker Supply, and Environmental Construction Solution, thank you guys. Have a great holiday. Enjoy your families, and talk to you soon.
Thanks again.
Thanks, Joe.